Welcome to the Future Proof Leader. I am Jessica Patch, co-owner of Twin Legacy Solutions. And today I have Paul Kuthe, Managing Director of Tributary Coaching. Paul, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. And so excited to learn about what you do. So why don't we start off by you just telling the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's great to be here. My name is Paul Kuthe, and I basically help people transform their messaging. So many people understand that story is the most powerful thing you can wield to affect human behavior. And unfortunately, a lot of leaders and a lot of businesses just don't know quite how to wield it. And so, what we're going to be doing for a lot of businesses is transforming their messaging and, along with it, their sales, their leadership, and their marketing, and making all of those things come together in unified fashion in a clear way so that people respond.
My gosh, communication is so important today, isn't it? I feel like in every aspect of our lives. Yeah. So the topic is buy-in and how to help leaders gain buy-in in how AI is kind of changing that, right? So I have a lot of questions for you. I'm excited to dive in. So the
Absolutely.
first one, okay. So a lot of leaders think buy-in is all about convincing people. Okay.
Mm,
But
mhm.
from your perspective, what is buy-in actually? And where do leaders misunderstand it the most?
Yeah. Well, I mean, buy-in at its definition is requesting investment. And that might be investment in someone's time, their energy, their resources, their intellect. But really, what people want, and what I think a lot of leaders are seeking when they say buy-in, is they want people to feel compelled intrinsically, right? And motivated to go and achieve a goal together. Having them kind of pulled along versus pushed into anything. And when people have that buy-in and that personal investment, they tend to put in more effort, they tend to get better results. And so what a lot of leaders end up missing is that opportunity to create that real investment from the very beginning. Often they come with fully fledged out ideas, maybe a room with a very few number of people who came up with those ideas and went through the process of, psychologically sort of coping with all of this change, and then foist it on the rest of the team without a whole lot of an opportunity to see where it came from. And so even more today, there's no shortage of ideas. And really the challenge becomes, how do we bring everyone's ideas together, give them that early investment in a meaningful way, and come away with something that's unified, that's cohesive. And there's no better way to do that than everybody understanding the story. And that can come from a few different angles. But really that's what I think most leaders are missing, and getting that buy-in is getting everybody on the same page in a meaningful way early on.
Yes. Now, how do you work with teams to do that? How do you work with leaders? I'm assuming at what level do you intervene? Is it at the CEO founder level? Is it the C-suite in general, or is it the mid-level managers? How do you go about that?
Often it starts off at a couple different places. Sometimes it's an internal marketing team that is got an objective and they're not quite sure how to frame the campaign or how to message it. That quickly kind of ends up sometimes going up to that C-suite level, because a lot of that core kind of guiding principles that are guiding the message that is being shared with the world really starts and sort of originates there. And what I always kind of warn businesses and organizations about is creating a great message for the outside world and a great marketing pitch for a campaign, but failing to bring that back internally in a meaningful way. And it creates a huge disconnect, because the client or the end user or those vendors or those people that are hearing that external message then don't have that cohesive experience and that aligned sort of feeling when they start working with the internal team, who may or may not have had any stake in that or any participation or really even know what know about it. And so the work that I end up doing with teams will often be very foundational at first. When I first start working with a team, we often will strip it all the way back to what are those core guiding principles, values, and mission that the business is really pursuing, and why, and then work from there to make sure that everything is actually lined up and working towards the same story.
Yeah.
There's internal and external marketing, and so often it's missed on the internal side.
Yeah, and that applies in a lot of places, right? So I have a military background, and on
Yeah.
deployment, I, we talked about this a lot. At the officer level, you're talking strategy, you're talking strategic mission.
Yep.
What is the objective? What's the overall why of why we're doing this? Like, where do we
Yeah.
need to get to? But then when you're, giving the directions and the orders down to, your enlisted jet, I call them like enlisted masterminds, basically, to come up with the
Yeah.
solutions. They're brainstorming solutions, they're getting the job done, they're doing the operations, but there is a huge disconnect in the why. And sometimes I'm like, I'm deployment. I'm like, I know that you're
Yeah.
always like, go, 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 go. We're doing like
Right.
ops, ops, ops. But
Yeah.
let's just take a minute. Do you understand what the overall impact is and why we're doing this? Because you guys think that you're just like preparing like a convoy here or you're doing logistics here, but you
Right.
know that the end result, if we can share it, as leaders, there's sometimes you can't really kind of communicate that overall mission for every job, I guess. But the
Yeah.
overarching value of doing that is they're like, oh, wow. Well, I'm not just I'm not just working my butt off for 12 hours a day,
Right.
working to get these communications. I was in communications. So, like, communication systems up and running. It's like I'm providing communications for people in the fobs,
Yep.
downrange so that we can communicate on a daily basis. And if we don't do this and there something happens, we're not going to have comms. They're
Yeah.
like, oh,
There's a
wow.
there's a
There's a little
literal
bit more pep
disconnect.
in their
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the sort of thing that creates the buy-in, right?
Yeah.
Having a clear picture of the bigger story that they're a part of and what is their role in that story. And I appreciate the David Marquette's work in his book Turning the Ship Around, where he shifts that dynamic of leadership on the sub from something that is top down and directive from the leader to
Yeah.
something that is, yeah, I love how you call it mastermind enlisted
Yeah.
personnel. It's like have a whole group of people critically thinking and understanding what has to happen on the big picture so that their work has more meaning and they apply themselves in a different, more creative way. It's
Yeah.
absolutely essential.
And I don't know if you agree with this, but when you're thinking on a strategic level and you think one way, like, hey, this is how the execution would look like. If you do communicate the overall mission and objective to the people on the ground,
Yep.
they might have see something like, hey, like your outlook seems clear. I understand what you're doing, but you really did miss a big part of the operational step here. You're missing a
Yep.
whole piece. Like we actually can't go route A. We have to go route B. So then that changes things a little bit. And I think leaders push sometimes without getting that feedback, and it causes more setback than progress.
Yeah. Yep. Even if they end up, and here's the interesting part perhaps is even if they end up in the same place, even if they would have ended up taking the same actions and having the same objective and really bringing people into the same plan, the way that you approach that and by having that space where you are actually listening and having people feel heard, even when you decide to go another route, they at least will have an opportunity to feel like their opinion and their part of this was there and it was influencing it at the very least. They're going to be much more likely to wholeheartedly follow. And not just that's the hard thing too when you have a difference in dynamic from those that are enlisted and really taught to follow orders either way. You bring that same sort of aspect into a working environment where people have not had that experience, and without that buy-in they're just not going to do it, or they'll silently sabotage your business. They'll say they are and they just won't. And it's really disappointing when you
It is.
when you have that and it feels really disempowering as a leader, and it creates a lot of issues. And so that's a big part of what I end up doing on a coaching level at the executive level is how do we communicate these things in a formula using story, right? That most powerful force one can wield to bring people in and invite them into a story that's really, really about them.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of the day, we all wake up as the protagonist. Like we're all the hero in the story that is our life. And
Yeah.
so how are we helping that person create and follow through on their hero's journey? And
Oh, for
there is
sure.
a lot of need to connect that for folks, and without it, we can often fall into a place where we end up just frustrated because we're not being heard, or we're folks aren't buying in, and it'll often will come down to just how you're communicating and framing the story.
Yes. When I think about communication, I always go back to, we've heard this a million times. You're a parent. You said you had children, with a background, but it's like nobody will care about your baby more than you ever. Like that kind of translates to business too. Like all of your passion and all of your why.
Yeah,
Not nobody will care about your baby. So how do you
you won't.
convince your people to
Yeah,
carry out your mission as if you would? Like, is it even possible? Right. So, how I guess my next question is where do you see the breakdown happening between a really good idea and
yeah,
then the execution piece and how like you said there's just going to be people that are not into it, like how do you
mhm.
break those barriers, like what barriers?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's a great question. And often people will think of a business as a machine that makes money.
Yeah.
The purpose of the business is to make money. And I think a lot of folks would just reflexively agree with that. Absolutely. And I love what Simon Sinek says around this is like, if, if a business whole purpose was just to make money, it would just, whatever business was most successful and could burn the most cash fastest would be the winner.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually more like a vehicle. And we talk a lot in StoryBrand and Business Made Simple land, the certifications that I hold and often implement in frameworks with clients is the business is an airplane. It's a vehicle for getting people to where they want to go. And the thing is, in your business or your organization, everybody's trying to go somewhere slightly different. Even if they're on the same mission and they want the business to succeed in this way, they're really on that airplane because they're trying to achieve something and go somewhere for themselves. And it's natural. But if we don't know where that is as a leader, if we don't understand where that business needs to take them next and help them get there, then we're going to lose our best people. And not only are we going to lose them, they're going to leave and go to the next opportunity that gets them where they want to go. We're going to lose them while they're still at our organization and they're not going to follow through on this mission or job or objective or metric they're supposed to hit because they don't see the connection between that and getting them where they want to go on that airplane.
So
And
what
so
does that look like though? Is that like look like team building exercises? Does that look like individual, like I guess group meet? Like what how do you achieve that
yeah.
connection? I guess. What's the
Yeah.
secret?
And at scale, right? Because a lot of
Right.
times it comes down to individual conversations and opportunities to connect. And
Yeah.
you can, and I always have, and I've run team building events quite often, but I have like an automatic cringe factor, and I'm like, oh god, team building. But there's a lot of ways to do that. You know, it's
Yeah.
there's the couple different kinds of
Yeah.
ways you can team build. Some of it's just interacting socially and creating opportunities for that where there's no real agenda other than being together and enjoying that space together. And that's where often those side conversations and those little insights into what's important really to people come through. But one of the tools I've developed with leaders that's really powerful and that's in my book that you see behind me, Activate Your Life, is really using story to gain insight on people's real goals, but also help them be motivated and see how it connects to their work. And what we do is we have them write a really vivid depiction and narrative of the future space where their goals are being achieved. And it's not just work goals and it's not just life goals. It's the integration of both in one story that can make it really, really powerful. And we're drawing from an aspect or a technique that athletes have used for centuries, for millennia. And it's the same thing I used in my previous kayaking career and working with athletes on the water is visualization. And we think about visualization, it's kind of like a misnomer because we're not just using the visual cortex of our brain to do this, all five senses, right? Bringing in all five channels into your brain and putting yourself in that future state around your goals and writing a story about it makes it so much more memorable for that person's brain, but also it makes it shareable. And if you can have a team where you know their goal story, they've shared it with you, they've integrated parts of their work and life into a narrative, not only is their brain going to be working towards that goal all of the time, you're going to have some insight into why it matters to them. And you're going to do it in a way that's time effective and scalable, but also meaningful. And so that'd be my nudge for any leaders out there that are wondering, how do I get people to care about the objective and the mission?
Yeah.
You have to care about theirs. And if you care about theirs and you actually get enough comfort and rapport and insight to get insight into that, you will have a mutual understanding that we're going through this together and we're going to get there together. We're going to create the opportunity where you get that goal achieved and you're going to have the business contribute to that and you're going to contribute to the business and we're all going to get there. So that can happen. You know, it doesn't have to be long. It's like a short couple of paragraphs. There's a step-by-step process to create one that's really fun. You can do it with a whole group of people in one room. You can do it individually, but it is amazing how much it impacts people's outcomes, just like it does for athletes that visualize their performance and then go and execute on superhuman levels.
That's really cool. I'm thinking back on like my different roles and responsibilities and
Yeah.
I just feel like I've never had a position where of course I have yearly objectives, right? I've been asked like, "Well, what are your targets this year? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years?" But I don't know if anybody really ever asked me like, "How are you feeling in this role?" Like, like how's it going?
Yeah.
Like I've always been the person where and I know this dynamic is just not new, right? If you're someone
Sure.
that likes to get stuff done,
Yep.
you're often not rewarded with anything else than more tasks.
Mm,
So it's like
right.
when you do really well at your job, instead of like, hey, let's get you buy-in, we actually tend to take those performers and lead that into a burnout. I've left corporate America because of it, right? So I'm like, why
Yep.
am I working so hard? I'm undervalued. Yeah, of course they want to offer me some more money, but in the end of the day, my work-life balance has to make sense. It
Yeah.
has to make sense of like what I don't really understand the mission, like overall the mission.
Yep.
So the military, totally different. I feel like that was like such a
Yep.
unique experience. But out in corporate America, out in company world, it's like not many people take the time time to get to know your why and where you want to be and what drives your passions. Because, like
Yep.
you said, I mean, I've
Mm.
always been like a servant type leader where I've taken care of my people, try to give them everything they need because when they feel taken care of, when they
Yeah.
feel like they're getting what they want to be successful, they tend to perform better for you. And like you said, when something comes up in their family life or something, they're more comfortable or trustworthy to
Mm.
share those things with you. And then
Yep.
you can be flexible. You get
Yep.
to know your people. But that's not often seen in the workspace. And it's not often that you can walk up to someone and be like, "So what do you think the mission of the company is?" And then
Right.
I'd be
Like,
shocked if someone would be like, "Well, our
here's what we're
mission
off
is
doing.
to."
Yeah.
No, they're like, "I come to work for 9 to 5. I gotta make some money." Like,
You touched on some really important things, and that
yeah,
comparison to the military is really fascinating, right?
yeah.
Because we hear the term work-life balance a lot, and I
Mhm.
think, and I, I think it's BS. I'll
Yeah.
keep it kid safe for kids' ears, but I think it's ruining and burning people out. And in the military, it's not separate. And there's a few reasons why work-life balance I think is a terrible model to aspire to. And it's not that you should be working all the time because you shouldn't, but it requires a separation. It requires or implies that they're two separate worlds completely, and that hopefully one is good enough to balance the other one out, which means that maybe one's bad. I don't know. So that's the it's not separate in the modern world for most people, especially not entrepreneurs, but even folks that just want to achieve at a high level, there's some degree of integration just because of our technology and how our world works. So how do you make that work? But also they can both be good. They
Yeah.
don't have to balance each other out, right? Like how do we
Right.
have these things integrate and flow together to where they're both really good? And the other thing is balance what we always really want? And by asking that, I wonder, how much do we get stuck because of balance? It's the imbalance quite often that creates movement and flow. Meaning, whether that's from weather or water or just an imbalance of, I want to achieve this and that makes me uncomfortable. I'm going to drive towards that. That imbalance creates movement. And so I think for a lot of people, if they want to progress and grow, like look at a teenager, like, oh my God, my kid is 11 now. He's not a teenager, but I can just tell like they're growing by leaps and bounds and they're anything but balanced. They are imbalanced individuals. They are,
Agreed.
and but it's because they're developing and growing and changing so much. And if you want your business or yourself to keep developing and growing and changing, maybe balance isn't the right thing. And so I advocate strongly for flow. And I have a framework for that I'm continuing to work with executives on, and they're finding a lot of success with. They'll maybe have to jump onto another episode to dive deeper into, but a lot of it is around how do we successfully integrate these things and have work and life have their boundaries but be able to bring those worlds together. And for leaders, if their folks are really seeing it as a 9 to 5 thing, leave me alone, that my leader doesn't know what I'm really trying to achieve, and I don't really know what the mission of this business is, that separation can become really, really harmful to both
Mhm.
parties. So I think it's robbing a lot of businesses of their best outcomes and productivity, and it's robbing a lot of team members from being really happy and they end up burning out as a
Yeah.
result. So I'm going to take a stand against work-life balance. And we're going to go for work-life flow instead. It's a better thing
Yeah.
to
I
strive for.
mean, I'm juggling 3 but I'm a go-getter. I call myself like a I mean, I'm a workaholic, but also I'm a mom of 3 girls. I love them. I have
Yeah.
11-year-olds as well. And, there's certain I have some certain boundaries where I'm like, I'm all mom right now. And then but as an
Yes.
entrepreneur, you're always kind of thinking about and I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for, what we need to
Yes.
achieve together. Like, you're right. But
And
what
do
do you
your
think of
daughters
this?
know the mission, right? Like, do you have a family mission, or can you share the insights into what you're trying to achieve so that when
Yes.
you do have to finish that email or take a quick call or jump onto a project early in the morning and they end up giving you a hug at your desk instead of at the bus stop, do they get why, or do they always just see it as taking away from them? If they're
Right.
in on it, if they understand a bit of what you're trying to achieve. The other day, my son came up to the office here and was getting ready for school, and he was like checking the top line revenue numbers on the business. We talked about what the goals were
I
for the
love that.
year and what it means. And he was like, "Are you working on the revenue, Dad? Is that why you're not?" I'm like, "Yep. We're making it move this month. It's going to be a good month." And he like gave me a big high five and a hug, and he was like, "Thank you so much." And I was like,
Yeah.
"That like
That's
that."
so
That's
sweet.
so cool to have him understand and have a little, so that's where it's, like, not totally separate, right? Like,
It's not. It's
it's
not
not
at
that
all.
I'm always working, it's just that it's the welcoming them into the story in a meaningful way where they feel connected to it too. and it's their story too.
Yeah, and I mean, it's different when you're an entrepreneur, it's your baby, right? Like, so it's your baby. Like my
It
kids
is.
see that I have
Yeah.
the passion and the insight, and I was like, just find what you love and do
Yeah.
that really well.
Yeah.
Dedicate yourself to it. Work hard. It's not going
Yeah.
to be easy. And when I have a hard day, hey, listen, today wasn't great, but like if I let
Yeah.
this stop me from going into tomorrow,
Yeah.
this isn't going to be progress. So I've
Exactly.
learned. Mommy took a hard lesson today, and I'm never doing that again,
Yeah.
but tomorrow
Yeah.
I'm gonna fix it and I'm gonna go forward. So many so many intertwined. You're right. It's so intertwined.
It
Um,
is, yeah. So, yeah, that's where I think we can really kind of bring the stories together a little bit. And so, for those leaders that are experiencing that, your teams are too. And so, if
yes.
you can create some space for that, I know we want their best professional selves to show up, and we don't want them to drag all of their life stuff into the office. But if they don't drag anything into the office, there, you don't really know what's happening beneath the surface. And suddenly, you have all these unexplained behaviors or things happening, people leaving or folks just quiet quitting and you don't even know why.
Right. Well, here's another topic I kind of want to talk about. So like
Yeah.
we meet with a lot of CEOs. We get the honor of doing these podcasts and getting in front of a lot of leaders, ambitious people. And sometimes you run into the situation where there's leaders, founders that feel as though they're doing a really good job connecting and having clarity, but
Mm,
there's still a disconnect, right? So how do you deal with that in the workspace? They think that they're doing all that they
mm.
can, but there's clearly still a disconnect in how things are running.
Sure. Yeah. Well, often we're really too close to it.
Okay.
And when we say, we're doing everything we can, or it often means they're just out of ideas. And that perspective or lack thereof will often limit those ideas. And so there's a lot of different ways we can get what I talk about as a feedback loop happening, and really give you that perspective that's a little bit different, a little more removed, so you can see more. And some of those things could be getting a mentor, having a coach, and having that other perspective there, or even going and solving problems for other business owners, creating community. Often business owners and entrepreneurs and folks creating these things are very isolated. Even if they're
Okay.
surrounded by people, it's an isolating experience because you're at the end of the day in charge of a lot of things, and people are always going to be often coming to you with problems or their hand out for something, and need things from you, and it's a different relationship dynamic. And so creating community and getting into, whether that's a mastermind that's formal, or even just going and setting up a monthly call with a fellow business owner friend where you alternate. We're going to spend half hour talking about your challenges, and maybe it's a little vent session, maybe some outside ideas, and then half an hour about mine. And gaining that outside perspective is a great way to help you see things that are right in front of you that you never even knew were there.
I couldn't agree more. And I laugh because I feel like in our business, we're always kind of doing like, we're taking all the feedback we get for people that come on the podcast, the industry, like the whole mission of the podcast is just to hear what people are doing. How's it going? Like, how's it going with
Yeah.
AI, leadership, the
Yeah.
intersection in between, and how are we all connecting to each other? We get
Mm.
CEOs and founders hoping that we can come in this space, but you're watching different episodes of people, you're not really connecting, right? So we've gotten a lot of
Sure.
feedback like, I cannot connect with other like, it's hard to connect with CEOs
Mm.
and get into whatever. We're actually literally doing research and development on the best way to kick off a cohort because we're
Yeah.
trying to always
Yeah.
kind of give what people are looking for right now. But that is
Definitely.
such a thing people are like very, very much in need of right now. They're like,
Oh
I
yeah.
just want to get in a room maybe once or twice a month with
Yeah.
like-minded people just to see
Mhm.
what's going on. Like there is a
Yeah.
loneliness to it, to all
Yeah.
strategy. And it's very hard to achieve that. So
We're more
yeah,
connected than
hopefully we'll
ever,
be
but more
kicking it off.
disconnected. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
this
that'd be
summer we're
great.
gonna be kicking off our cohorts actually, and we've
Oh,
been getting
exciting.
so much into it, but I'm hoping that the value and the pressure of all those
Mhm.
things that you feel so lonely with, kind of like connect with other entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders, whatever level you're at would be really cool. So yeah, I
Oh,
think I
do it.
couldn't agree more with you. And that's what we're hearing is like, hey, I just don't know if I think I'm doing a good job. I put
Sure.
everything into my business. I strategize, I try to team build, but I just don't, what am I missing? And it would be
Mhm.
cool to kind of bounce those ideas. So that's cool. Now, speaking
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
we do leadership AI stuff. I'm dying to hear your perspective on
Yep.
you deal a lot with communication. So, what we're hearing
Certainly.
is AI is here, people are using it
Right.
for communication. So,
Certainly.
what's the risk do you see of leaders kind of relying on AI for their messaging? And how
Yeah.
much should we use it? How much should we not use it? What
Yeah.
are
Oh,
your
we should
thoughts?
should absolutely use it, but we need to use it well. And it's just like any other tool. And if you use it like everybody else, you're going to sound like everybody else. And
Yeah.
so often what is happening out there at this level for a lot of folks is at the very beginner stage is they're doing, single line prompts. I'm a, plumbing company in this place and I need a new website. Give me the words. And there is so much more that you can share and give that prompt that will make it so much more rich and so much more authentic. I think a lot of people are savvy at this point and they know how ChatGPT sounds, or they know kind of the patterns that Claude and a lot of the large language models crank out, and it starts to instantly put people in a negative reaction to that business because it feels inauthentic. It feels low effort, and it feels like everybody else, and so you just blend into the background. And so what we need to be able to do is understand what really works about that communication. And it's no longer about delivering the end product. It's empowering teams and their lead to use this in a really authentic way and to teach them how to keep that message and those communications within the guiding principles, within the values of the business, within the story that you're trying to tell so that it's all cohesive. And so there's some things we can do to create some standard prompts and to really give the tools we're using the background information and frameworks that we want. Something I'm having several clients right now do a brand messaging guide and prompting guide for their team so that they can go ahead and plug those in whenever they have, whether it's an email or a social media post or they're sending out a quote or proposal to a client. They can really have it all be on message at scale and authentic and unique and driven by the things that we, you know, have known worked long before AI was here, right? For
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of years, our brains have been fine tuned to deal with story and to metabolize that and remember it. And by giving people a tool to be able to understand that at the formulaic level,
Yeah.
then they can go and apply it with these tools to do incredible things for our organizations. But we have to do that first step. We have to make sure and give them the guiding principles, that the guiding messaging sort of parts of the story that they can then go and make everything else from.
I couldn't yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely missing today, and I think that people unknowingly they just don't know what to do or where to start, right? So we get AI prompting is so big right now. You're right, it's
Yep.
kinda like if you know what to say to AI, you can be very, very effective, and if
Mhm.
you don't, like you said, a lot of people aren't at that level, so this is something that you help your clients with, and I
Do
love
now.
giving them
Yeah.
the tools. I feel like that's what we miss, right? Like, we don't do the SOPs, we don't do the procedures, we don't have the ethics behind like, what is the
Yes.
protocol for the AI? How are we gonna, what is our brand messaging gonna be? What are our limits? You need to kind of associate those with your business. And when I ask those questions, I've had conversations about, they're like, oh, we don't have any SOPs. Well, it's
Yeah.
hard. There's no laws on AI right now. Like there's not
Right.
clearly defined laws on how to use it ethically. And for as a business owner or CEO, you haven't done that yet. You really
It's
should
the
be.
Wild West. Yeah.
I mean,
It
it could be dangerous if,
it
you're
just
not kind of
is.
putting
It yeah.
parameters on it.
Not even could be. It just is. And there are a lot of liability security concerns.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
lot of competitive analysis that happens out there and research you can do. And often businesses and their teams are not clear about how we use what tool for what purpose and what are the kind of guidelines and do's and don'ts around that. And that's for every industry. But it has some serious implications in medical and
Ooh,
legal,
financial, yeah,
financial
legal,
worlds.
financial, absolutely. And
Yeah.
communication comes back to communication, right? How are
It
we
really
communicating
ultimately
that to our
does.
teams and clearly identifying what our
Mhm.
expectations are? That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll end on a philosophical question
Ooh,
for you. Okay, so
okay.
like if a leader's struggling to get their team aligned with all their ideas right now, what's
Yeah.
the first thing they should fix immediately to start getting some real buy-in?
So my brain goes a lot of different places. I think there is a management and execution problem that consists of people really reacting to problems and instead of building in the space to solve them proactively. And so I think as a leader, often it's opening up the channels of communication by creating the spaces for it. And I'm a big proponent of cutting down the number of meetings we have. Emails, and there's a lot of ways to communicate messages these days. You don't always have to be in person for this. But I think there is a way that we can create a framework for teams to and leaders to get the information they need from the rest of the team and create that buy-in by making sure that they have some regular set of priorities and meetings that are going to be strategic. And so if you're not doing some sort of huddle with your team, and this can be large or small, this might be a department huddle. There's a difference between huddles and meetings. And I think that a lot of times, well, huddles, what are they? Like You do them standing. They're usually short, and they're
I
usually
love
about what's happening just right now. Like, think about a huddle on a like a football team, right?
Yeah.
They're coming together real quick. They're saying what the highlights are, what's about to happen, what we need to watch out for, go and do it. And those are really important to have as a separate thing from meetings. Meetings are something different, right? They're for problem solving, they're for deciding things, for creating buy-in and really creating opportunities that don't exist any other way. And so if we can, as a leader, figure out when are we doing huddles, when are we doing meetings, and then make sure and have somebody checking in with each individual on a one-on-one basis at least once a quarter, somehow, way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
and touching on not just work stuff. That's where you get into that work-life flow a little bit. And we need to be able to bring those folks together. If they don't have an individual that they're checking in with as their main report at least once a quarter, they're going to feel lost in the story, and you're not going to get what you need. So I think as leaders, the first thing you can do is set up the channels and cadence of creating that. How do you make that happen on a systematic level? And then how do you create some way to get the information to you that you're missing? And so I like to do not client satisfaction surveys. I do client engagement surveys often that we can start pulling in the information and creating those chances and then following up with one-to-ones in some way to get the details. Those two things I think are probably the biggest thing you could start with. And from there, you can at least convey a story and understand their story and where it's going.
And you make it sound so easy. So, Paul,
It can be.
for
We just
those
need to
who don't
execute on
find
it.
it that easy, where can we
Yeah,
find you? I know you have a couple books behind you. So,
I
do you
do.
want to
Yep.
tell us like about those real quick and like where
Yeah.
people can look you up if they're looking for some communications assistance
Yeah.
or
Absolutely.
coaching, or all the above? So,
All the good things. All the good
okay.
things. So I'm a StoryBrand certified guide. So all that means is that I implement the StoryBrand certification framework or certified to implement that framework for businesses. But I've also been a coach for over 10 years. And if folks want to check out any of the coaching side or the communication side, go to tributarycoaching.com. Tributarycoaching.com is going to have a free resource there that's included in the book behind me, the Activate Your Life book I referenced earlier, where you write that goal narrative, that goal story. The chapter in there is available as a free resource. So go to just the resources section on tributarycoaching.com and you can write your own goal story. And I would love for folks to send me theirs. If they want a little extra accountability buddy, I'll definitely respond and cheer you on in that way. And then if you want a coach to help make it happen, you can book a complimentary coaching call there as well. And we can dive in to see how we can help you use the tools that we have to help you along in your story.
Yeah, and you have a cool background. Like you were, I think you said a
Yeah.
sports coach or kayaking.
Well, my whole background was in professional kayaking and doing projects with National Geographic and big outdoor sport brands. And that's where my sort of leadership skills really started to develop is taking people in high stakes, critical environments and bringing them home safe and training other leaders to do that. So
I
creating
love it.
buy-in quickly, getting people to trust, getting them to understand the objectives are all skills that are used out there on the water as well. And so we have a river retreat center here in
Wow.
Washington State. We're on the Washougal River. And so the background here is actually the Washougal River, and our
Oh,
spot is right there on the outside of
that's
that
so
bend.
cool. Wow.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place for leaders to come from all over. We're only about 25 minutes from Portland's International Airport, and folks can come out here and spend a little time a day or a week getting their story straight in their life and business and
Oh my
creating that
gosh.
flow. Yeah,
That is so cool. So you
yeah.
bring definitely a unique experience and from to the table. That's so nice. I'm gonna look
That's what
into
makes
this
it
a little bit
memorable.
more. I can't. I'm afraid of water, so yeah, I wouldn't be a good candidate for that. But
Well, there's
very
definitely
intrigued.
plenty of dry land next to the river that it makes for a beautiful setting to observe, and it's just a play. It's not even cell phone signal here, and we're only
Oh,
20 minutes from the airport, and it's just a way to get folks out of their normal place and really experience a beautiful place and gain that space and that perspective and insight sometimes that they've needed for a long time.
I know. I feel like I love your intersection between like figuratively, we're gonna get you there, and like literally, we can get
Yeah.
you to understand your story. Like I feel like that's important that you have a literal and figurative way of getting there, and that's very unique thing you bring to the
Otherwise, it's
table.
just a wish, right? It's Make it a plan.
I love it. Well, thanks, Paul. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. We definitely have to have another one. Work-life balance. That sounds exciting. I'm taking you up on that. For our
Yes.
listeners, thank you so
Work life
much
flow.
for tuning in.
Work life flow for everybody.
Oh,
Yes.
work-life flow. Right. We're
We're
not
gonna
using
fix it.
balance.
We're gonna
We're
change
not
it.
going to be balanced. Just as and for everybody else, thank you for tuning in and check out the episode here or the more episodes. We will have a follow on. So until then, thanks for tuning in.